It's finally here. Count your lucky stars and all your blessings that you lived long enough to witness this moment in history. Today marks the beginning of Generation Beta. For those of you confused, which is probably 0 people watching, I'll explain anyways. A generation marks a period of time at which people were born, usually associated with whatever social or industrial revolution that takes place. So, for example, Gen Y, more commonly referred to as millennials, were individuals born during the time at which things like the internet and social media were beginning to take off. They have the capability to understand many technological advances and ability to teach older generations how to utilize them, while also having the mental capacity and patience to learn new advances from generations that follow. Obviously, that was an abridged version, but is the best example explaining the concept of generational periods. Depending on the generation at which you were born, that will most likely reflect how you are able to perceive and adapt through the challenges of life. So today, I thought it'd be fun to take a look back on the last generation and highlight some of the crown jewels that came during Generation Alpha so that we can set a presence of what to expect for Gen Beta. In all seriousness, this video will most likely just be me analyzing brain rot, so proceed with caution.
Oh my goodness, oh my damn, oh my goodness, they're going ham, oh my goodness, oh my...
Yeah, you knew this one was coming. Probably the most successful thing that will ever come from Gen Alpha, TikTok was a revolution in content creation and online entertainment. It showcased how anyone regardless of talent or qualifications can make something entertaining. Alongside that, it also revolutionized marketing and online promotions. Advertisements that used to be via commercials or skippable ads can now be full-length videos on the platform and deliver a message within 10 seconds or less. However, it also pioneered what many refer to as brain rot, as TikTok also demonstrated how the human attention span was rapidly devolving. Nowadays, people can't even sit through full-length videos on YouTube, let alone stream a full episode of a show. The Gen Alpha mindset has changed how entertainment is perceived, where it's all about quantity and maintaining the viewer's attention non-stop. This ultimately causes a decline in quality as a result of this excessive need for new content. This is evident on Instagram, or aforementioned YouTube, where these platforms now have their own short-form content to cater to the shorter attention span that's plagued the modern audience as a result of TikTok, and even streaming services are starting to adapt this ideology, with platforms like Real Short trying to transition full-length series into short-form content. It's definitely atrocious, and while I'd be a hypocrite to say I disapprove of TikTok and we shouldn't encourage this behavior by using it, or even that it's solely to blame for the modern attention span, we'd be lying to ourselves if we tried to deny this obvious problem. While TikTok is a revolution in the space of content creation, at the same time, it also tarnished it by pioneering a mindset that encourages less quality and more quantity by overstimulating the human mind without any real effort put in to compensate. You remember when videos used to be very simple? You'd have a couple adults record themselves doing a little skit, or vloggers record their daily lives? What the fuck happened? Skibidi Toilet is a prime example of popular media amongst Gen Alpha. It capitalizes on their decreasing attention span by overwhelming them with hyper-stimulating content. As a result, it's become one of the most popular series online for God knows what reason. It has like 100 episodes that have no real depth, and instead focus on implementing as much content as possible from numerous mods, sounds, and oversaturated lighting. I mean it when I say there's no real depth to the lore behind Skibidi Toilet. That single clip, that 10-second clip I showed at the beginning, that's episode 1 of Skibidi Toilet. And I'll have to do my fucking homework to figure out how we got here, but now the series has evolved into a raging war between the singing-headed, human-headed Skibidi... What the fuck? So the series has now evolved into a raging war between the singing, human-headed Skibidi Toilets versus the humanoids who have these human-like bodies, but assortment of items for heads. It's not like I'm going out of my way trying to analyze children's content, but I think there's a very clear difference when it comes to the amount of intelligence between children who watch Skibidi Toilet as opposed to shows like Bluey, which is probably one of the best series to come from Gen Alpha because it doesn't cater solely to them. Yet there is a Skibbity Toilet movie that's currently in development, and they've already added a skin to Fortnite. It's not just stupid, it's actually dangerous, and is a perfect transition to the next thing I want to talk about, which is the intellectual level of Gen Alpha.
This 8th grade kid could not spell a single word correctly on his list. 8th grade.
Without exaggeration, the influx of illicit content online has had a negative impact on the development of children's brains within Gen Alpha. Even if we stick to one platform like YouTube, there's a very clear difference between the impact content like Ms. Rachel has on the development of children's brains as opposed to something like Cocomelon. Gen Alpha is often referred to as the brain rot generation, which isn't an exaggeration. The hyper-exposure to this online content has caused shorter attention spans amongst the generation, and as a result, negatively impacted their educational development.
I teach 7th grade, they are still performing on the 4th grade level. Ain't nobody talking about how they just keep moving, passing them on. I can put as many zeros in this grade book as I want to. They're gonna move that child to the 8th grade next year.
That's another thing I have to call attention to for a moment, which is the parental figures. Most Gen Alpha babies were raised by millennials, and those parents seem to just give their kids iPads and let the internet raise their children. As a result, while the intellectual level of these kids is their own fault for sure, that doesn't mean the parents don't have their share of the blame as well. As Kubiski states, it doesn't matter if these kids fail because rather than show discipline and raise their kids properly, these parents would rather blame the teachers for their children's intellect and force the schools to pass them anyways. Listen, it doesn't take a genius to understand basic educational principles. I'm not gifted or anything, but if the normal for Gen Alpha students who are 2 years away from entering high school are performing between kindergarten and 4th grade levels, then I must be Albert Einstein.
My principal told me you can't do that in Georgia. They have completely taken discipline out of education at this point, especially in Georgia. You cannot use the grade book to implement any kind of discipline or any kind of enforcement with students. And that is going to be the ruin of our kids.
This is a fact 100%. A lack of discipline amongst this generation is going to ruin these kids. And it already has. Children need to be disciplined, especially when they're not showing any signs of improvement from not doing so. I'm gonna hit you with the cold water for a second. There is a difference between discipline and abuse. Using the gradebook to enforce students to do better in school is in no way child abuse. But again, I don't think it should be the responsibility of teachers to discipline these kids. I think teachers should focus solely on educating their students, and parents discipline their children when they're not performing up to standards. And if they don't show signs of improvement, then they should absolutely be held back so they can focus on retaining the knowledge they didn't acquire so they can do better going forward. I didn't think this was something that ever needed to be said, but after learning this was Gen Alpha, I had to send some kind of message if there's even a chance at saving Gen Beta. Getting back to the topic at hand, fidget spinners. Just another example that Gen Alpha needs to be excessively stimulated. But hey, Gen Alpha's not without humor, you know, maybe that's worthwhile.
Well, Skibbity Moore, I made it, despite your projections.
Ah, incredibly Candy Chalmers, welcome. I hope your body is ready for a Bowser Fargassy luncheon. Riz.
I stand corrected. So I was about to end the video, but then I remembered I have to call attention to Gen Alpha's slang. Initially, I thought I'd just do it while talking about humor, but then I realized this probably deserves its own chapter in the video. Sigma, Skibbity, Bussin, Sus, Bet, Riz, Drip, Slay, Got, Ohio, Phantom Tax, and of course, Mewing. I really don't think I need to continue. You get the idea. Gen Alpha was horrible, and I hope we can collectively agree to do better for Gen Beta. I'm not saying you need to get the belt or anything, but maybe don't be like Caillou's parents. That's really about it. So,